Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. When there is a medical negligence case on such a scale that it involves many people, where the damage is done to these people is so severe, so astonishingly bad, that it is not just life-changing and sometimes life-ending, but for which most normal people looking at it cannot even comprehend how bad it could have been. When it appears that with effect you've allowed a plumber to operate on a human being effectively, and then when there's been an apparent massive cover-up of this, there of course will be questions, and it needs a full, open, public inquiry backed by the law, a legal inquiry forcing people to attend, forcing people to answer. And this is an event that's happened over many years, and it happened over such a time that the entirety of it happened within the SNP's tenure as the government of Scotland. And for some reason they are absolutely and positively refusing, outright blank refusing, to have an inquiry. The patients are demanding one, and now the Tories, Labour, Lib Dems want one. Even the medical profession themselves are calling for one, and still there is no inquiry. What have the SNP got to hide? We're talking, of course, about Professor Sam Eljamel, who is a brain surgeon, and that's not actually true. He is a hack. He might as well be a tree surgeon as a brain surgeon, and the damage he did at Dundee. We're going to take a look at this now. Here goes. So SNP ministers urged to come clean after a damning review of the NHS Tayside horror surgeon Sam Eljamel. This guy needs a waxwork in the Chamber of Horrors for the things he has done. He truly is. He's someone who should have worked at Auschwitz or Sobibor. He's that kind of doctor. What have they got to hide? The Tories, Labour and Lib Dems joined patients in calling for a public inquiry and demanding that Health Secretary Michael Matheson give a statement to Holyrood. And there he is. There is this absolute hacker of brains, a man who quite clearly has been given a job for which he has no suitability whatsoever. A health board put patients at risk. And that's the problem they've got, because if they've seen that they've put them at risk, they'll be liable. But a health board has put patients at risk from a surgeon after ignoring external warnings that he was a poor doctor. And so they were warned about him in advance, and they still allowed it. And that is, of course, the nub of the matter. This will then come down to the liability issue going towards the SNP, and they cannot have it. NHS Tayside carried out due diligence review into Professor Sam Eljamel, who had employed as a consultant neurosurgeon at Ninewells Hospital in Dundee from 1995 until 2014. A legal claim was made in 2013, and the board launched a probe that June, with the Royal College of Surgeons carrying out a review following the complaint. And in the next 6 months, Professor Eljamel operated on a further 111 patients. The NHS received a total of 9 complaints and settled 2 of them out of court, branding supervision measures inadequate in a report. If he's getting things like this, he needs to stop being a brain surgeon. A statement from NHS Tayside said this was a direct or an indirect supervision, which meant he was not supervised directly in the operating theatre by another neurosurgeon, but it apparently seems he should have been. The report said these patients were placed at potential risk of harm due to the inadequacy of the supervision arrangements. Dr Pamela Johnson, NHS Tayside Executive Medical Director, told a board meeting following the publication of the review on Thursday, Police Scotland were involved at some stage and I can't give you any more information than that. Yes, you can. You're choosing not to. She said, I have written to the patients who've had their operations between June the 21st, 2013 and December 10th, 2013 to inform them about the findings of the review and to sincerely apologise on behalf of the board. But what about all the ones he operated on prior? The ones he got wrong then? She apologised to patients and called on anyone who's concerned to get in touch, and then given the through the liaison team and given an email address there. All three opposition parties at Holyrood have backed calls for a public inquiry and for the NHS Tayside board to resign en masse. Scottish Labour Deputy Leader Dame Jackie Bailey said, "Those who failed to end this scandal must be held to account. We need a full public inquiry and we need government ministers to come before the Scottish Parliament immediately and explain what they knew about this scandal and when. They will have known nothing and they will deny everything and they will have a terrible memory. It's the SNP way." Conservative MSP Liz Smith said, "These revelations surrounding the disgraced Sam Eljamel are devastating. They prove beyond all doubt that NHS Tayside failed to act appropriately when they knew that there were some very serious concerns about the medical practices of Professor Eljamel. Just as scandalous is the fact that they have kept the truth from patients for years and that the Scottish Government has failed to address this. They knew. The Scottish Government, the SNP government, knew and did not act and did not do anything. They could have, they should have, but they failed." A Lib Dem MSP, Willie Rennie, called for the Health Secretary Michael Matheson to make an urgent statement on the scandal when Holyrood resumes next week. He said, "It is beyond me why it has taken years for the admission that the professor should have been supervised in theatre when there was clear evidence that the problems in practice were in theatre. The 111 patients must receive the best possible support now to get them through the emotional turmoil and anxiety that they will understandably now feel." Now I know some of the when they had their meeting in Dundee recently, and Hamza Yousaf was there addressing the crowd of about 12 men and their dog, and a woman came forward in that crowd and basically sort of harangued him there and then on the spot, and he basically dragged her off to the side. He didn't want to be harangued in public. He dragged her off, and then they had this conversation, and he promised that he would look into it. But of course it's a Hamza promise, isn't it? And he's done sweet FA ever since, because he doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't want to dirty his hands on such things as normal human beings. The investigation, an investigation, was dropped in 2014 when the surgeon retired, which Dr Johnson said was a missed opportunity for learning, which would not happen today. And the RCS warned about his probity in 2013. So again, another warning. Midway through the supervision period, and there were signs that he was a poor doctor. However, NHS Tayside made no escalation of supervision. They should have. A staff member lodged a complaint during this time, but there was no outcome or action identified. So the staff in the hospitals knew that this was a problem, and still the board did nothing. Professor Eljamel was allowed to continue working for another 3 months before finally being suspended in December 23. Sorry, I can't say the words. 2013. My apologies. He retired in 2014, which ended the investigation. It shouldn't end the investigation just because he retires. The investigation must continue because you don't know what he's done. In 2015, he voluntarily removed himself from the GMC register unchallenged by the board, which could have intervened. He took himself off so that he was no longer under their auspices and couldn't be prosecuted or harmed by them. This is the extent. He knew how bad he was and he knew what he had to do to save his arse. The report said that after he left NHS Tayside, a website stated the surgeon was a clinical fellow, a qualification he'd earned from Connecticut University while working at Hartford Hospital in Connecticut, prompting concerns. NHS Tayside said there was no evidence of this on his CV, but the qualification would not have been required for the post. Even so, anyone putting a qualification up, whether it's required or not, it should be checked. Otherwise they're lying, and you don't want to hire people who lie. A decade later, patients who were referred to chronic pain clinics following the flawed procedures, including operation for sciatica, are demanding a public inquiry, with 2 legal cases ongoing and 12 settled. The NHS Tayside held the due diligence review to assist the medical director in their assessment to the adequacy of procedures to detect signals of concern relating to the practice of Professor Eljamel. What the big question is, knowing how bad he was because you knew, knowing that there were concerns because you had them, concerns from patients, concerns from staff, concerns from other outside sources. Why was he still allowed to continue doing brain surgery on patients without supervision, or indeed at all? And it just goes on. It's sort of further meetings about what they had. The whole point here, though, is this call for an investigation must go through. We have to work out why the why the SNP do not want to have an inquiry. What have they got to hide? Who signed off on this? Is this another example of someone who was previously the health secretary not, wanting to take responsibility? I wonder who that could possibly be. Who are they protecting? Who do they always protect? Stop there, and I'm coming up. Now, of course, we know full well why they don't want to have an inquiry, because we know who was health secretary back then, don't we? There's only one person it could possibly have been, and that is why there will no way be an inquiry while the SNP are in control, because they've got to defend and hide and protect the blessed Nicola. Why is it always her? Why is it always her that needs to be protected? Even now, after she's resigned, they're bending over backwards to protect her. What does she have on them all? It's odd, isn't it? Anyway, I shall stop there. I shall not put any more on this, because it's quite clear that it absolutely stinks. It's a cover-up again, yet another one. This time where people's lives have been damaged beyond repair, and no one wants to point the finger at the person ultimately responsible. Thank you very much for watching. If you like what you're seeing here on the channel, please hit that subscribe button, because the truth must come out. We must keep pushing this truth out. Why is this covered up? And you push that button and the truth comes out, and the wider we go, the louder it becomes. Till next time, stay safe, stay well, and for heaven's sake, don't let anyone dick with your brain if they've got dodgy qualifications. Bye.